This week, I am joined by Lauren Wickerham, who is a franchisee for one of my favorite brands, which is Spoiled Rotten Photography. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. You're one of my favorite people.
So sweet. Oh my gosh. We're not cutting that out. We're going to leave that right in there for everyone to hear in this episode. All right. So, Spoiled Rotten Photography. And where are your locations located?
Currently own two territories in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Now, I think when most people hear photography, we often assume that it's all encompassing photography, right? Typically, maybe family sessions. Spoiled Rotten might make us think you're taking photos of kids, or maybe bachelorettes and, weddings and everything that comes in the realm of spoiling people. But in actuality, it's much more narrowly focused, which allows you all to be experts. Tell us a little bit about that area of expertise.
Sure. So we are very much in kind of a niche market. It started as primarily focusing on preschools. I'm a mom of three kids. Life is busy, life is hectic, and anything that we can kind of take away from having to schedule and plan, that just helps. And so there's all these families that have their children in preschools because they're working or doing something else. And so we are able to take a whole portrait studio into the preschools and provide these families with a custom photography session for their individual child. It's not school pictures. We're not lining them up and bringing in one kid at a time or bringing in a whole class at a time. We're bringing in 1 to 2 children at a time and really trying to pull out their personality and just capture the joy of childhood because it goes by so fast. We have expanded into yearbook portraits as well, and we can do custom family sessions, but really that special area for us is in the preschools.
I have seen your photos. I had the pleasure of speaking at the Spoiled Rotten conference this past year. And something that you all do is a very extensive photo contest where you choose, I guess the corporate office chooses some of the best technical photos, and there's all these different categories. It's kind of like the Academy Awards for Spoiled Rotten photos. But these photos are absolutely gorgeous. And I was asked to have my own like category as one of the speakers of the conference, and I had such a hard time choosing. And the reason was I was looking for the personality of the child, right? Like I was like, I like things that tell a story. And so of the photos that I had to choose from, there were so many that actually told a story where I could imagine being the parent of these children and thinking, when they're 18 years old, looking back at that photo and thinking, oh, you know what? That expression sums up her terrible twos, or like, oh, she was such a diva back then, look at that expression. It was just like, these aren't photos, these are memories.
That's exactly it. There's a few thoughts behind it all. One is I like to tell people that we're coming in and we're playing and we just happen to take a picture of that moment. And that kind of fits with your story narrative, right? That we're just I mean, my kids have come to work with me and they're like, "You're not our mom because you're just a different person here." We just really we get down on the kids level and try to have fun with them, and there happens to be someone behind a camera pushing a button in that moment because we want to capture that true essence of childhood. We want to tell that story because here's the thing with pictures. Right now we live very much in a digital age where it all lives on our phone. And when you're 80 years old, you're not going to be pulling a phone out of a box that was under your bed and having the battery still work and being able to show those images, right? We want something that you love so much, you're going to print it because that's what you're pulling out when you're 80 years old. My grandmother put together a photo album for each of her grandkids, and it was a precious thing. And when she passed, we each got those albums. That's what I'm pulling out, not a phone with a digital image. And yes, parents can buy digitals, and I just beg them, please print your pictures because it is such a precious moment. I've got my second going off to college. I can feel the time slipping on my third. And it's just those precious moments that you want to be able to pull out and look at. Hang them on your walls, please. I'll buy you a picture frame. Just hang it on your wall.
I couldn't agree with you more in that kind of visual of, in our old age, looking back through the memories. And what I think is so precious too about a printed photo and having a photo album is I think about the opportunity to sit on a couch with people around you, flipping through that
Mhm.
photo album and telling the stories of the photos. And you can't do that with a phone. I mean, you can look at it on the phone and then you could say, okay, here, right? But to be able
Mhm.
to honestly have multiple people seeing the photo at the same time in an album where you're maybe seeing other contextual photos around it, that is somewhat of an art that I think is being lost in our digital age, and I love the way that you all bring that back. So, I agree with you. Have photo albums. I'm sitting in my office right now with a bookshelf, and I have about 10 photo albums there. I have one my college years, right, and the dance team, and every time my dance team gets together, I bring my albums and everybody loves it. Now, granted, back when I was on the dance team, there were no digital photos, so they have to be printed and in a photo album.
Right.
But it is people love it, right? It's just a completely different bonding experience than the digital photos.
It is, and we are trying to make it as easy as possible for the families to get those printed images. So when they order with us, they can order prints and we have them brought in, printed at a professional lab. They come to my house. I do a quality check of all of it before I hand deliver it to the school. So they're not having to just get the digital, print it at a local pharmacy, or I don't even know what places do it anymore, and go pick up the order. Like, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for these families because we know, time flies and life is hectic sometimes.
Well, and I also think something that's interesting, at least in my family, when I was a baby, my mom bought a studio photo package from a woman, and it included kind of like what you guys do, where we could go to the studio multiple times a year and get these, multiple poses, multiple out. I don't think you guys do multiple outfits at school for a single photo shoot, but throughout the year, I might have four different outfits on, and the reason she bought it as the oldest and her only child at the time is because she knows at that age you change. Like the way that kids look changes so rapidly between, 3 months to 6 months to 1 year. And I know those are maybe a little bit under the preschool age, but even, as they go between the ages of 1 and 4, they just look so different every 4 to 6 months. And so, but here's what I also know. Being the oldest, we had all these photos of me from that package. And then my sister, who's 3 years younger, my mom didn't get the studio package.
Mhm.
And there aren't as many photos of my sister. And then the third one, there's even less professional photos of her. Right? So
Guilty.
but by taking all of the friction out of this, you're actually leveling the playing field for all of those siblings out there that feel like underrepresented in the photo albums because every kid in the family could be getting 4 photos a year documenting them as they grow up through these very important stages of development.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the schools 2 to 4 times a year. We trust the schools to kinda know what their parents want, and we don't wanna make them frustrated by how much we're there, so we trust the school, and most of my schools I'm at, it's 2 to 4 times a year. We do get kids as young as 3 months. They start that young. So, I'm thinking of I get a number of kids popping in my head right now. I love getting to watch them grow through the years. And so we do. We have some that start at 3 months and they're graduating this year, and we're taking their little cap and gown pictures before they go off to kindergarten. And it's I think that's one of my favorite things about this business is that we get to see that because we're going to the same schools over and over again and watching these kids grow. And yes, if the kids are going to the same school as their older sibling, then we're getting them coming through. And then one of the other things that we offer is an elective mini session, which is different than when we photograph every kid at school, where the parents can choose to sign up And when we do that and we're not having the pressure of photographing an entire school, we're able to take sibling photos for them. So a parent is able to say, Johnny's in the toddler class and Susie's in the pre K class, and we want to have their pictures taken together. So not only are we giving them those pictures of each individual child as they grow, but sibling pictures. And our parents love it so much that some even bring their older siblings. They'll ditch school for the morning, bring them in to get those pictures done.
That's amazing. I mean, what a service that you're providing to these families. Because 'cause you're right. I mean, without this happening at school, then that not only means we have to find time in an evening or on a weekend or a day that, a President's Day or something where school's off, but then we're also competing with the older kids' sports schedule and all the other activities that have to be fit in those times, and adding more to the mental load and the, physical schedule of these parents. So this is such an easy peasy way to ensure that this crucial time is documented. I absolutely love what you guys do. I also love it because, looking back, again, dating myself here, but, back, my mom gave me a perm twice a year for my whole adolescence, which is in all of my school photos. But for us, we had those traditional school photos where you came in, you sit down, you maybe smile at the right time, right? To capture your real smile, and you get one shot at that click. And while you could do retakes as a kid, as I remember it, maybe if your eyes were closed, you got a retake. But you're not getting a retake because you had a half smile or you didn't, that doesn't qualify as a retake. Now, how many pictures are you guys actually taking of these kids when they're with you?
Good question. And I'll date myself with you. I had the big feathered bangs that went
Yes,
back.
that yeah,
So, you know,
that was part of it. They were like
I
that
didn't do
and
the
then
perm,
curls.
but yes. Oh, yeah. Um, so it depends on again, the type of session we're doing. So when we are at a school and we're doing what we call the personality portraits, that's where we're photographing every child in the school. Parents aren't having to pre-order or anything like that. We do it all hoping that just they love it enough they'll want to order. So there's no like obligation there. So when we're photographing the entire school, we tell parents we're going to send them 3 to 6 pictures in their gallery, sometimes more. But the difference is we're not just taking 3 to 6 pictures and you get what you get. When I'm saying 3 to 6, I'm saying I'm sending you 3 to 6 of the best of what we got. We are up against a timeline typically. We want to try and be done before nap times and lunchtime because after that, the kids are done, the hair is crazy, it's too chaotic. So, we try to be done in the mornings. So time does play into it a little bit, and a child's personality. I'm not going to traumatize a child for pictures. And the fact is, we're strangers. It's a room they're usually not used to being in. There's big lights, and so we have all sorts of tricks that we tried to use to get them comfortable. But at some point, we may have to call it and just say, this wasn't their time. But the majority of parents, when we're photographing a whole school, they're going to see 3 to 6, but it's going to be 3 to 6 of the best. With the mini sessions, we tell them 10 to 15. And then if there's siblings, there's more than that. But again, it's of the best. So for me, as someone that's been doing it for a while, I can usually take 15 shots and know I've got that 3 to 6 good for mom and dad, and then more for those mini sessions.
Now, you said something in there where, you're being very mindful of the position that the kids are in. And sometimes we're having a bad day or something like that. And one of the things you said is that we're strangers, which is true. However, when you really are being able to photograph a child from the time that they're 3 months old through kindergarten and or preschool at least, but I know for a lot of these kids, you actually have elementary schools that they're going into, and so you might photograph them longer through their school journey. I have to imagine that you're forming some really great relationships with these kids where they know the drill when they come in, that it's gonna be fun, it's gonna be playful, and they're gonna see Miss Lauren, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So The hard age, I will just tell you, is like 18 months to 2.5. That's kind of that typical stranger danger age. And so that's usually where we kind of encounter the greatest amount of fear and uncertainty. And the schools are wonderful about helping us with those children. But you're right. We are there so much that by the time they're 4 and 5, it's the picture people. Like they love it. We want it to be not only a great picture from mom and dad, but a great experience for the kids. And so a lot of the feedback I get from parents is our kids came home just going on and on about how much fun their pictures were. And that's what we want it to be. We want it to be fun. And so you're right. We are there so much that once they've kind of worked through that stranger danger age, they know who we are. We walk into the classroom to get a child, and three will circle you and be like, "Can I come? Can I come?" Because it's fun. We wanna have fun with them.
Well, and yeah, looking at the different sets that you guys use, because if someone's taking photos with you, or if a school has you taking photos 4 times a year, correct
Mhm.
me if I'm wrong, but I believe you have a fall themed like studio set with different props and background and things that all are cohesive. And then you have a holiday set that looks like a winter landscape, which I mean, I saw the one with Santa, absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous photos. And then you have the spring set, again, another theme set, and then a cap and gown opportunity to celebrate the graduating babies.
So cute.
So, so cute. When we talk about studio photos and when we talk about the fun and what the kids are having, there's a lot of little nuances built in that they know it's going to be a surprise. What are we going to see this time? Is Santa going to be here? Like all these little pieces of the puzzle that just are, I think, part of why you're able to capture such amazing photos.
Yeah, I mean, we wanna bring the magic, right? We never use the same set twice at a school, so there's always a new fall, a new spring. We rotate out the holiday. The only one that really gets repeated is the cap and gown, but those kids graduate, so it's not like the parents are ever seeing the same, you know?
Right.
But yeah, we wanna bring the magic. We have a toy bag full of a secret stash of things to try and get the kids to laugh and smile and have fun. We act absolutely ridiculous. So, if a parent gets a picture of their child and their child doesn't look happy, trust me, we tried so hard. I mean, if my body would let me do it, I would do somersaults and cartwheels for them, but that's not wise. But we do everything we can to try and let those kids just have a magical moment in the picture room and have fun with the purple picture people.
Well, it's obvious you succeed there. I do have some other questions about, because I mean, it's very clear how you make the kids' day and how the parents are thrilled with the photos. Let's talk a little bit more about the school itself, because I mean, picture day, I would imagine for teachers and the director or the principal of the school is maybe not their most favorite day of the year because I like herding cats between all these kids and classrooms. And then there's some type of schedule to adhere to, I'm sure. So, what does it look like for them in if you guys are doing this 4 times a year? How disruptive is it for the school?
So, spoiled rotten, yes, we want to spoil the kids, we want to spoil the families, but we do want to spoil the schools too. It is not lost on me that we are disrupting their day when we're there. We are taking over a space. Sometimes they're giving up a classroom, or we're having to be in the same room as a class because they have to be mindful of ratios and teacher to children. And so sometimes we're in a hallway. I have photographed from the front door before and had to slide out of the way every time a parent came in. So we know that we're disrupting their day. There's no way around it at all. But thankfully they're kind enough to invite us in, and we do everything we can to make it as easy on them as possible. So our system for how we communicate with the parents and handle the orders, we're cutting the school out as middleman for that. They're not having to send home sample images and collect payment or anything like that. We bring a team in. So it's not just me as a photographer going in, and it's up to the teacher to bring her whole class and she's got to pose them and clean them and try to make them smile, which is kind of the way school pictures used to be, and we're trying to change that. We bring a team in. So ideally, depending on the size of the school, I'm going to bring a photographer and two assistants. One that's going to help with getting the kids posed and smiling, and one that's going to help with getting the kids cleaned up and ready to go. And we're going to do everything we can to remove hurdles for the school. Now, I think it may vary by state. There are some state regulations where the school may have to be the one that gets the kids to and from, but we want to make it as minimally invasive on them as possible. And then, like I said, the goal is to be done each morning before nap and lunch so that they can just continue on throughout their day. And we check in with them periodically. Is there anything else we can do to make this easier for you guys? And generally speaking, I would say, at least with all of our school directors, they're very thankful, and it's as easy as it can be, given what it is.
Well, and also, I love, as a former prosecutor, I'm always thinking about safety. And I know you all take safety very seriously as well.
Hmm.
And you have a standard practice of vetting anyone who comes in contact with the kids. What does
Yeah.
that look like?
We do background checks on them. And then if the schools require different schools require different extra levels, if they want us to get fingerprinted, we'll do fingerprinting. But we do a state level background check on any of our employees before they start working with us. And then there is a lot of we're harping on them about the safety of a child. No child is ever left to walk back to class by themselves. If they're smaller and could topple over, then there is someone literally on their hands and knees staring at that child. They have to ignore all of our craziness and just keep their eyes on that child, because the last thing we want is for a kid to topple over and hurt themselves. We won't let the kids run around the room because they can't really hurt our equipment, but if that light tipped over and hit them on the head, it would scare them for sure. And so he's like our number one priority.
Yeah, I know you have a lot of safety training and protocols in regards to the
Mhm.
way that your team handles the kids and works with the kids
Mhm.
and yeah, I mean, obviously it shows in the pictures, right? We don't see pictures of scared children or intimidated children or things like that. We see these beautiful happy kids. The other piece of the puzzle that I know I've talked to schools about before, I mean, they have to do fundraising for different things. And that typically comes with, it's such a headache because there's always something to organize and send out and collect order forms and
Mhm.
all and then, did an order come in? They're playing customer service agent between the parents and whatever the fundraising organization is. And you guys have actually offered a benefit to schools in that realm and eliminated, correct me if I'm wrong, but like all of that customer service headache for the school.
Yeah. As far as giving back, we give 10% back of the sales to the school for them to use however they want. Some choose to use it to treat their teachers. Some use it to restock classrooms with whatever materials they need. But yeah, we give it back to them. Locally, I've partnered with some of our learning experiences who also partner with Make a Wish Foundation. And so their 10% goes straight to Make a Wish, which I absolutely love. And then as far as the customer service component goes, everyone will reach out to us and we'll troubleshoot everything for them. Of course, a parent's walking in and they pass their director and they're gonna be like, "Hey, I didn't get my order. Do you know anything about it?" And we just tell them, send them to us, direct them to us, and we'll solve all the problems for them. And so we've tried to, like I said, kind of cut out that middleman of the director and the teachers having to handle everything as much as possible.
And I do think that's one of the big things that I've heard from some of the directors you guys work with is, they had a different photographer before you came along, and it was a local photographer who may have been a great photographer, but they just didn't have the infrastructure that you all have. And so much of all of these little things come back on the school. And that's not what they're there for. They're there to teach the children day in and day out, make sure the objectives are met as far as learning and safety and happiness of the kids. The other, I don't know how many days school's in session nowadays, maybe 180 days out of the year. So you're there for 4 maximum of those days, and they have unless it's a big school. I guess you might do multiple days, but or instances throughout a year, but they've gotta handle everything else every single day of the year. They don't need another job as customer service agent, you know, or fundraiser coordinator and those types of things. So I know that they appreciate that.
Exactly, and we're constantly trying to refine our processes to like I said, it's not gonna be we're invading their space. There are some things that are unavoidable, but we're constantly looking for ways we can refine things to make it easier on them. And yeah, I mean, there are plenty of local photographers that are great, but this is the upside to having a franchise is the infrastructure is there to help the schools focus on what they're there to do, educating the child and letting us focus on all things connected to the pictures.
I'm glad you mentioned the franchise because I do think there still remains some confusion from the general public about what a franchise means.
Mhm.
And, you hear people say, like, I don't want to eat at a chain restaurant. And I mean, there's some validity to that. I don't necessarily want to go on vacation and eat at the same place that I could eat at home, but I think that there's a perception that extends beyond that that a franchised restaurant means it's some faceless corporation conglomerate running that location and there's no connection to the hometown. So, and that you're not supporting small business owners when you patron a franchise.
Mhm.
And obviously, and our listeners here really understand the difference that that's not the case. But do you ever run into that misunderstanding, like with directors when you're first talking to them about, are you really the owner or are you just working for this large corporation?
Yeah, I'm guilty. That was me before owning. Like I just didn't know. I didn't think about it in that way, and now that I own it, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm local. I do live here. Um, and I do own this and I do run it." Uh, and so, yeah, I mean, that was a huge mind shift. Like I've totally looked at business a completely different way. Anything, restaurants, whatever. And I agree. I'm the same way. We go out of town. I just want something that's not in my town. But I now understand that all these franchises that we drive by day in and day out, typically it's someone is living there, running it, involved in the community. And what they've done is they've just chosen to buy a process and an infrastructure that would make your business 10 times harder if you didn't have it. I don't think I could do what I'm doing without this help. As far as running into uh, any kind of negative feedback, as far as the fact that we are franchised, I have not personally. We did have one school that did say, we want to go with a local mom. And my internal dialogue is, I'm a local mom, but I get it. Like, I get what they were saying. And so they did go that route, but then they ended up back with us because it was the very thing you were saying. Great photographer, probably. I don't know. I didn't see the images, but she just couldn't handle the volume aspect of it. And it put too much work on the school. And so I really, truly, the schools we're at, they love our system so much. I've not had much pushback on the fact that we are franchised. Some of them until now may not even know that we're a franchise, quite honestly, because we try to keep it so personable. All of the photography teams we have, they all live here. We try to keep the same photographer at the same school. So we are building personal relationships with these schools. We're not just some business popping in and out. We truly want to know what's going on and care and help them in any way we can.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your franchise journey
Okay.
because you have a really cool journey. I think any franchisee listening would be very excited to hear how you became a franchisee because I think a lot of current franchisees dream about this pathway, not for themselves, but for the person who will come to eventually acquire their units. So
Yeah.
can you share a little bit about that with us?
It's wild and crazy. Not a path I ever would have imagined myself on. So I first was introduced to spoiled rotten photography 8, 9, yeah, 9 years ago in Atlanta where I lived, and a college friend of mine owned the franchise in Atlanta. And she posts online, "Hey, I need a helper at a school. Anyone free?" And I said, "Yeah, I can do it." And so I went and helped her one day. And that was the end of my connection to Spoiled Rotten Photography. And then we moved to Texas, and then we moved to Colorado. And the previous Spoiled Rotten Photography owner of this territory was at conference talking to my friend and was just like, "I'm struggling to find good helpers." And she said, "Hey, I know someone that just moved there. Let's get you connected." And my kids, I homeschool my kids, but they were getting older and a little more self sufficient. And I was wanting to contribute financially to the family somehow. And so I met with the previous owner, and it was ideal for a mom because we would go and work at the schools in the morning. I was home by lunch, still plenty of time in the day to do school stuff with the kids and activities or whatever. And it really just, it was great. And so I did that for 3 years. At some point during that, I knew she was looking to sell, but it didn't really register for me that we should do it. I actually was telling her, I was like, "Hey, you should go buy a territory in Tampa, where I'm from, and I'll go down there and rent it for you." And I vividly remember sitting at a restaurant. I know what table I'm sitting at. I don't remember what led this conversation to happen. I know my husband and I were kind of at a crossroads of what do we want to do? Are we staying in Colorado? Should we be near family? All that kind of stuff. And I said, "What do you think if we bought your franchise?" And she was like, "Yes." She was going to re up her contract because she wanted out before she didn't stop loving it. But she was not gonna just sell it to anybody. She wanted her business to go to somebody that she knew enjoyed it, cared about it, and this wild hair idea that my husband and I had, we just threw it out there, and she was like, "Yeah, let's do it." We were not supposed to officially buy it until this past December, so December of 25, but some things happened in her life that fast-tracked it, and so we ended up buying it in January of 25 and just have been learning as we go. It's been quite the blessing and the wild journey. I'm in my newly renovated basement because we outgrew our little bedroom office. So it's been wonderful.
Let's talk a little bit about that transition from employee to entrepreneur, because something you said, we took it over in January and it's been a learning curve. And I'm sure a lot of people listening, particularly those who aren't business owners yet, are thinking, well, what do you mean it's a learning curve? You were working in the business already, day in, day out, photographing the kids. Like,
Mhm.
wasn't that just an easy transition? So, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yes, it was an easy transition, and no, it wasn't. So my role prior to buying the business had been I was a photographer. I was going to the schools, I was photographing, but that's where it ended. I didn't do the editing. I didn't do any of the kind of back office side of things. And so there was still a lot about the business I didn't know. Now, the blessing of my role was that I already knew all of the schools that we would be buying. And so there was already a relationship there. We went into each school and told them about the transition, and it was just felt very natural and good. I would have expected there to be some attrition when we took over because it's just, well, business ownership's changing. That's a natural time for a school to change and try something else. And we didn't. We didn't lose a single account. And I do credit that to they already knew me. I'd already been there for a couple of years. And then when the previous owner, she got really sick. And so my coworkers and I stepped in to like finish out our season. And so I started to see some of the back end stuff because we just had to kind of figure it out on the fly. And so thankfully, the corporate headquarters, they were very helpful and like on speed dial for anything. And so I did learn some of the back end of things like the editing, the loading, the sending it to parents, all of that. But I had never dreamed of owning a business. So the language, what's EBITDA, things like that. I didn't know any of that language. And so when we bought the business, the learning on the fly has kind of been taking care of employees, hiring, firing, all of the business, the accounting side of things, all of these things that just were never in my frame of mind whatsoever. I had the photography down. It was the night, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much under that I didn't know. And so that's the part that we kind of had to learn on the fly. And thankfully, again, thanks to being a part of a franchise, I have resources I could reach out to, either other franchise owners or headquarters that offered lots of training and one-on-one help whenever we needed it.
Oh, that's awesome. So now what are your next big plans?
Well, my husband has very big plans. He's a
He
dreamer.
does.
He's a dreamer. You've met him. Um, I want to focus more on actually getting more accounts. So we're a year and a half in, and for the first year, I said, we are not doing anything but keeping what we have. I didn't want to overwhelm ourselves. I didn't think we had any business trying to grow when we didn't even know how to fully do it with what we had. Now there was some natural growth, but we didn't go out beating on the doors and talking to new schools and things like that. Thankfully, we have added like 7 or 8 schools, some of it naturally, some of it through online marketing and whatnot. And so I would like to try and be a little more intentional about that. I feel like we've got our teams pretty solidly in place that we can now handle that kind of volume. Big dream. I just want to help my kids get paid for college. I would love to. I'm in Colorado. We don't have air conditioning in half the houses here, ours included. I would love to have air conditioning. I know that's not dreaming big enough, but for people who live in the South, that's just unfathomable. So, um, we just want to be able to keep our lifestyle the way it is and not worry about things, continue to provide service to the schools. I love pictures. My grandmother instilled that in me, I think. And I want families to have that. And so if we can provide a service to families while making it as easy as possible on the schools, something that they can just cherish and hold on to, I just want to keep doing that. I love it. And if we can offer that in other places and grow some more territories, that might be in the cards once we graduate our youngest.
Well, I think there's no better place to stop the interview than there. I mean, that was fantastic, Lauren. So,
Thank you.
if people are listening in one of your territories, or maybe they're listening and, they it's not your territory, but they are interested in having spoiled rotten inside their schools. I mean, one, I know even parents go to schools and say, "Hey, we need to get spoiled rotten in here taking our photos." So it doesn't always have to be a school director. But how would people get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Sure. So if they go to our website, www.spoiledrottenphotography.com, there is a Book My School link. That's generally for the school directors. So, if it's a parent that's like, hey, I want you here, definitely tell your school director about it. Click the Book My School link, and they're able to put in their contact information. And if it's around Colorado Springs, then yeah, they'll reach out to us. If it's we had a school in New Mexico that had their picture day canceled last minute, and I was they did the Book My School, not knowing where we were. I was the closest franchise owner. I was like, well, I've always wanted to go to Albuquerque. So our family loaded up, perks of homeschooling, and we went to Albuquerque. So, any school anywhere can fill out that form, and our corporate offices will get you connected with the closest franchise owner to see if we can make it happen if there's not already one there in that area.
I do love that about your franchise as a whole,
Mhm.
is that you have such a strong culture of community, generosity. Your core values are amazing, and I know the founders live by them, and they really do, spread that throughout the whole brand. And I'm so excited that we have the opportunity to work with you all, both at the franchisor level and the franchisee level, because you all lead and serve with such integrity. And so thank you for being on the show today.
I really appreciate it. You're right. It's a great group of people. I love getting to message with them. We cheer each other on, we celebrate each other. No one's out here clawing at the other. It's a really great group of people. Feels very family like. You've seen this before. We get on Zoom calls and cameras are on. They're really trying to build that environment where we can all just be each other's biggest cheerleaders. And I love that. And I've enjoyed working with you because it again, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so it's been nice to work with you and kind of just understand some things better, kind of see where some of my trains of thought were kind of on the right track, but how do I get there? And so it's been really nice to work with you on that.
Thank you. All right. So check out the show notes to learn how to get in touch with Lauren, how to look into a spoiler and photography franchise for yourself if maybe there isn't one in your area, because they are ready to grow and it will happen fast. We'll talk to you next week with another feature here on the Ask April Porter Show. Thanks for tuning in to the Ask April Porter podcast. If you found value in today's episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow franchisees and small business owners. To access the resources I mentioned during this episode, check out our show notes.